is up, Bizarre Rights and Inquirers, and welcome back to the most bizarre Halloween special that there is on the internet. I am the one that, like a handful of people, refer to as Shayn Squatch.
Sasquatch rhymes with Asquatch.
Well, I guess you got me there. Sasquatch definitely does rhyme with Asquatch. And alongside me, as usual, I have the big bad Boo Daddy himself, Sir Orin Felix.
I was wondering how long that was going to go on.
I found it on accident, and it ran for about 13 seconds, so I thought it was
sure
about perfect.
You did. No, yeah, I'm not believing that was an accident. You Googled freakishly long sound effects.
And I didn't get anything too crazy to be able to announce our special guest for today, but I completely forgot, so I wasn't even able to put it onto
we have two special guests.
Oh,
actually.
we have two special guests today.
Yes.
Well, I guess at least one special guest. Would you like to announce the special guest, Orin?
I'll let you do it.
Well, it is somebody who hasn't been on the show for a very long time, but for all of the listeners who have been around since the beginning of Orin popping on the show, we have the one, the only, Jennie, or Paranormal Jennie, as we used to call her.
Rock on! Yeah!
And Adam Sandler's very happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you guys too. Hoppy's here too.
Oh yeah, there we go. We got two surprise co-hosts today. There you go.
Yeah, the Goblin is making an appearance.
And I don't think, I think he already did announce it, but Riley, unfortunately, was not able to pop into the special. He's got some stuff going on in his personal life. Nothing bad. I think he posted it on the page, but he's expanding his family, so nothing bad. But unfortunately, I believe he is stepping away from podcasting temporarily. But maybe at some point we can get him to pop on for a special down the road at some point. Like, we eventually got Jennie to come back on. It only took, a year and a half or so?
Well, we're not planning on having any children, so, I mean, that shouldn't be a detriment over here, so.
Well, at least as far as Halloween goes for you guys, because, of course, we're going to get into the Halloween special, and we're trying to mix it up a little bit to not do it, generic like everybody else, so, most people talk about origins of Halloween, all of that type of stuff, so we decided to mix it up a little bit. But before we get into talking about all of the Halloween festivities, I, of course, have to ask you guys, what is your favorite part of Halloween? And also, what is your favorite Halloween memory?
You want to go first?
No, you go first. I'm off the thing.
Ooh, okay. So my favorite part of Halloween, I would say just like the general vibes, like watching movies and like Halloween like corresponds with college football season, so that's like a time of year I really like anyway. And
hockey season.
Yeah, hockey season, and like when I was a kid, I just really liked dressing up. Period, whether it was Halloween or not. So yeah, just like all of the above, all the spooky stuff, and just the general fall vibes and everything else that's going on that time of year, and Halloween movies, and yeah, just all of the above.
And what about you, Jennie?
I can agree with that. So I love every Halloween. I love decorating. I decorate like the day after Labor Day, so we've been in full spooky season since September, whatever.
That's how it goes for a lot of people in the community, it seems like. I mean, technically, my studio half the year is decorated with our Halloween decorations, so I guess it is part of comes with the territory.
Yeah, I love it. I think my favorite Halloween, maybe, and it wasn't actually Halloween, is when we went to HHN at Universal Studios last year. That was a lot of fun. It was kind of wild. So yeah, there's that.
Well,
What about you?
For me, I guess my favorite part about Halloween would be, like you kind of mentioned, like the ambiance of it. Like, it's kind of cool when no matter where you go, everything's decorated with like ghosts and spooky stuff. And it's one of those times a year where, when you openly talk about the weird stuff you talk about on the show, people don't actually give you funny looks for it. So it's always a plus that I can push people into a paranormal conversation. So I'm always absolutely happy with that. And I guess
1 month out of the year, you can be as weird as you want to be.
Exactly. And I guess personally, one of my favorite Halloween memories that doesn't seem like it happens too often anymore nowadays, but you guys not having kids and stuff, you guys probably aren't seeing this, but do you guys remember going to like the rich neighborhoods and getting the king size candy bars?
Yeah, for
That's
sure.
probably one of my favorite memories. And it seems like when you go to the rich people neighborhoods now, everything is downsized a little bit. So now they give out normal size candy bars, which is still cool. Don't get me wrong, but it's that same feeling that we used to get when we were kids, where you get that full king size. Like those people are really going the extra mile.
Capitalism in a nutshell, though.
or shrinkflation, I guess. It also
Either
kind of
way.
works there. But I guess roundhouse that I was trying to get to here. Do you guys have any favorite traditions or traditions that you know have been something that people have been doing since the beginning of time when it comes to Halloween?
I don't know. Like we just always decorate the house. It's got more and more elaborate as time goes on. Like we live in an apartment, so it's not like we have a yard or anything. But like in front of our door, we've got all sorts of like I don't know what are those called? Like leaning signs and like
we've got to lean and stacking pumpkins, and
we had a graveyard out there last
and
year.
This year we've decorated the inside of the house too. And I'm like, hey, maybe this will just stay all year long. Why not?
Hey, why not? I mean, it fits. It works for a background for the studio and everything. So, I mean, it works. But at least I'm assuming that, you know, considering you guys have are definitely getting into Halloween, I'm assuming you guys get into at least carving pumpkins hopefully every year, right?
So, fun story. Yes, we love to, but we've had this. Can I cuss?
Yeah,
I can,
absolutely.
Right? This fucking fruit fly infestation going on. So I did not do a pumpkin this year. I was like, we're not going to give them something else to eat, but
Well, I
we do
guess-
like to do that.
Little bonus fun fact. I don't know how true it is, but I'm also weary of the smell unless you're putting it outside. But people claim if you put white vinegar all over a pumpkin, it'll preserve it. It'll keep bugs away, and it'll also keep squirrels away from eating it. But I don't know if you guys have too much of a
Interesting.
squirrel problem with the way your apartment's set up. I don't know if your door's inside or not, but like I said, might make them smell bad. But supposedly white vinegar is supposed to help with fruit flies too. So,
Okay, good enough.
but I feel like a lot of people, they get into, you know, carving jack-o'-lanterns, but they don't necessarily know the origins of it. So speaking of the origins of jack-o'-lanterns, have you guys ever heard of the Legend of Stingy Jack?
I have not.
Absolutely.
So I guess this is our perfect spot to start off with today. I know I covered this probably, I think, at our very first Halloween special, but this has been probably one of my favorite Halloween stories going on ever since, and it's one of those ones that I end up telling the kids every year. So I made sure that I got a dramatic retelling of the stories that I can share it with you guys here today for anybody that hasn't heard the story of Stingy Jack and what the origins of jack-o'-lanterns are exactly. So without further ado, let's get into this first story today.
Okay.
So, in the green rolling hills of old Ireland. Well, let me first zoom in the screen a little bit because I have bad eyes and I wear glasses, as everybody can see. So now that we're fixed here. In the green rolling hills of old Ireland lived a man named Jack. He was a notorious drunkard and a cunning trickster. So much so that he earned the nickname Stingy Jack, because he was known for being selfish, manipulative, and never willing to pay for anything himself. He was, in short, a miserable old soul, but he possessed a sharp, wicked wit. One dark evening, Jack found himself sitting in a local pub. Having run out of money, he was desperately seeking a way to avoid paying his tab. It was then that the devil himself appeared, having heard many tales of Jack's wickedness, and he had come to claim Jack's soul. Jack's surprisingly I always end up getting caught up on one word. You know how that is. Jack agreed to go with the devil, but he made a final request. He asked the devil to buy him one last drink before they departed for the underworld. The devil, amused by Jack's audacity, agreed. However, when it came time to pay the bill, Jack convinced the devil to transform himself into a silver coin, promising that once the drink was paid for, the devil could change back and claim Jack's soul. The devil, thinking that it was a simple trick, transformed into a shiny shilling. But as soon as the coin clicked in Jack's hand, the trickster quickly pocketed it next to the silver cross he carried. The power of the cross prevented the devil from changing back or escaping the tight confinements of Jack's purse. Desperate to be released, the devil begged Jack to let him go. Jack agreed, but only after making the devil promise that he would not bother him for 1 full year. And that when Jack finally died, the devil would not claim his soul for hell. The devil reluctantly swore the oath, and Jack released him. 10 years passed, and true to his promise, a year passed, and true to his promise, the devil returned to the same spot to retrieve Jack's soul. This time, Jack knew he had run out of time for his tricks, yet he made one final plea. He pointed to a tall apple tree nearby and said, "Before we go, I've just realized I haven't eaten an apple in years. Would you fetch me just one, so that I may have just one last taste of the world above?" The devil, confident that this was a harmless request and eager to get a transaction over with, quickly climbed the tree. But as soon as the devil reached the highest branch, Jack swiftly carved the sign of a cross into the tree trunk, trapping the devil high above the ground. Furious and unable to climb down, the devil demanded that Jack remove the cross. Jack refused until the devil agreed to a new, stricter promise that he would never again seek Jack's soul under any circumstance and would leave him alone forever. The devil, humiliated and trapped, had no choice but to agree. Finally, his reprieve exhausted, Jack grew old and, being the rogue that he was, finally died. First, Jack went to the pearly gates of heaven, but because of his wicked, miserable, and stingy life, a life full of trickery, drunkenness, and cruelty, he was promptly turned away. With nowhere else to go, Jack descended to the gates of hell. When the devil saw Jack, he was reminded of the humiliating bargain that they had struck twice. True to his word, the devil refused to let Jack enter hell, citing the promise that Jack's soul would never be claimed. Go back where you came from, Jack, the devil growled. You are cursed to wander the earth forever. But it is dark, Jack pleaded. I cannot see the path. The devil, in an act of spite, tossed Jack a single glowing ember from the pits of hell. It was a piece of eternal coal that would never burn out. Jack carved out a large turnip, placed the coal inside, and used it as a lantern to light his way. And so, Stingy Jack was cast out, forever doomed to wander the earth in the dark night between the realms of heaven and hell, carrying his humble, glowing turnip lantern. To this day, he is known as Jack of the Lantern, or Jack O' Lantern. When people carve terrifying faces into turnips, beets, or later pumpkins, they would wander off the path of Stingy. They were warding off the sight of Stingy Jack, a lost soul walking the earth. So, for anybody also that didn't know, an additional fun fact in there. It wasn't actually pumpkins until the Irish came to America, and then that's when they started using those. But originally it was turnips, and they weren't actually using pumpkins until they came to America, and the natives ended up showing them pumpkins. So, a little fun fact, it wasn't even originally a pumpkin, it was a turnip. So, jack-o'-lanterns were a turnip. 2 fun facts all in one there. So, there you go. For anybody that may not know that story, now you guys know.
No, that's a pretty funny one. I think it's kind of interesting that the main character is this trickster type entity, or, it was a human, but how many of these stories that we talk about on the show go back to some sort of trickster being or entity, being the source of some sort of creation? So I think that's kind of interesting in and of itself. And also the idea that, he was kind of caught in this liminal space and, was kind of destined to wander the earth. That also gets back to what we've been talking about a lot lately with, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim wandering the earth and things like that. So yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack in that little tale there.
Hey, and when you make deals with the devil or you make these bargains, you may think that you won it first, but there'll be some way that it'll come back and bite you in the ass later. This is something we're talking about, I think, with the Fae, too, that you have to be very specific about your requests. Otherwise, it'll be turned and flipped. So, of course, you think the best bargain ever is the devil can never claim your soul. But what happens when now you can't be claimed? Because, again, you got to mind a technicality. That's what I think is one of the most interesting parts about that story is that, we think it's one of those stories where somebody finally tricks the devil. Then he gets him on a technicality. But in all fairness, though, I think that technicality is probably better than the end result, because I'd personally rather be wandering, the earthly realm with a lantern than be thrown into the pits of hell personally and have infinite torture forever. I mean, that sounds like he may have actually came out on top of that deal.
I guess that's the best you can hope for when you're a trickster, drunkard, whatever.
Stingy.
Yeah,
Stingy Jack.
Yeah. So, do you have anything to add on this one?
I don't think so. I've heard that before. When we were carving our pumpkin, I guess 2 or 3 years ago. I think I kind of told you the story, but no, that's a fun one.
I was going to say, I'm glad somebody's actually familiar with it, because I'm really surprised at how many times I've retold this story and people have no idea. Even the whole turnip thing over being a pumpkin, people are just unaware, which is really unfortunate sometimes that we do all of these different traditions and things, but people aren't really too aware of where the true origins of a lot of this stuff is. It's been so misconstrued through the years that you kind of have an idea for a lot of stuff, but I mean, you don't know for sure. Even Christmas, I mean, everybody has a million different variations on the origin, and it's they're all a little bit true, so I don't think you'll ever really know the true full answer to it. But
well, and all that sort of stuff is just so sanitized at this point, and a lot of these holiday traditions and rituals, if you will, obviously date back to pagan times and pagan practices, and just through the years, and Christianity and organized religion, they've just been sanitized and added in with so much churchly things that it's kind of unrecognizable from what a lot of these things started out as.
Well, I'm glad that you said that because this is a perfect means to be able to switch into the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about. So, this is something that I grew up with for years, and I'll give some more context. But of course, I want to see if you guys are aware of it because I didn't know that this was mainly a Michigan area thing. I thought it was all over the country. So, are you guys familiar with Devil's Night?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
Wow. See, I knew I would catch you guys on something then. Are you guys familiar with like basically this whole idea about like basically destroying everything and pranking and doing all this crazy stuff on Hallows Eve? Have you guys ever heard of that? I think that there's other different areas that might have different names for it. I think they call it like Hallows Eve and stuff like that too sometimes.
Sounds like The Purge.
Yeah, kind of is. So, if you guys are you guys familiar with the movie The Crow, like the '90s one, the good one?
Like the Brandon Lee or whatever.
Yes, that
Yeah.
one. So, for anybody that may not be aware, that movie takes place in Detroit. And you know the whole premise of how it leads up to, you know, where they end up getting killed, that it's in Detroit, there's all these city fires, there's all these riots, everybody's going crazy. That's supposed to be Devil's Night in Detroit back in the 90s, because that's how crazy that used to get back in the 90s. It was this thing where, like, everybody would basically just riot and set everything on fire. Like, I grew up, at least, with, on Devil's Night, the night before Halloween, like my dad would check every single door, my mom would check every single door, everybody would lock everything up, everybody be already be inside. Yeah, it almost was for a while, especially if you're near the Detroit area. But I wanted to bring up an article on this because it seems like it's one of those things that unless you're from the Detroit area, like nobody's heard of it. So I figured this would be a fun, I don't want to say Halloween tradition, but I guess partially a tradition in Detroit, at least in the 90s. And the good news is it's kind of started to fade away, but we'll get into it through the years. But without further ado, let's kind of get into somewhat of the explanation of what Devil's Night is exactly. And this article comes from Detroit Historical, so it's coming straight from one of the city press things, so I thought that was kind of cool. But the night before Halloween, October 30th, was once considered Devil's Night in Detroit. Devil's Night for Detroiters was marked with flames and fear, but later was recognized as an example of power and community. What is Devil's Night? Devil's Night stemmed from the European tradition of Mischief Night. Mischief Night can be traced back to Britain, where it was referenced to the day before May Day, a celebration for the return of spring. Much like Devil's Night in Detroit, Mischief Night in Europe was marked with pranks committed by youth. Mischief made its way to the U.S. during the 1930s and 1940s, when cities across the country started experiencing a higher number of pranks and vandalism on October 30th, the night before Halloween. Some historians even cite the rise of Devil's Night mischief to Black Tuesday on October 29th, 1929, when the U.S. stock market crashed, causing the Great Depression. Tensions of war and extreme poverty would have caused the escalation in the number of incidents. From the 1940s through the 1970s, Devil's Night in Detroit, as in other communities around the state, remained largely harmless and mostly a nuisance to the police and fire departments. The pranks consisted of egging homes or toilet papering houses, nothing too extreme or dangerous. But in the early 1980s, the pranks began taking on a dangerous tone, which leads up to about the time I was mentioning when I was a kid, where everybody was like, yeah, no, lock your shit up and let's get inside for Devil's Night. Rising unemployment in the city contributed to the number of empty properties, the perfect target for arsonists. Pranksters began setting fires in abandoned properties and homes in 1984. The Detroit Fire Department extinguished more than 800 fires across the city. This would be the highest number of fires recorded. And this was about the time that The Crow was supposed to take place, to kind of give people a visual of like what this used to be like back in the day. The arsonists often targeted empty homes and properties, but intentionally or unintentionally, the fires spread quickly. Over the years, the fires resulted in injuries, destruction of property, and even deaths, which began as simple pranks committed by youth, quickly escalated to citywide arson, with slimmed-down police and fire departments unable to fully control the chaos in Devil's Night. The city enlisted the help of the community. Angels in the streets, the community steps in. And I don't think, this isn't too long of an article. To curb the arson and other severe crimes, the city of Detroit enacted a curfew in 1986, restricting those under the age of 18 from being out past 10 p.m. on October 30th, unless accompanied by an adult, and the day surrounding it. So this is what I was kind of mentioning earlier, that everybody would be in at a particular time, especially kids, because I remember as a teenager, if you were out on Devil's Night when it started getting dark, you're probably going to get brought home by the cops. Like, they did not mess around with this shit when I was a kid, dude. In 1995, the city began enlisting volunteers in the neighborhoods to help prevent the flames from catching and spreading to other properties. The group of volunteers operated much like Neighborhood Watch, patrolling their communities and reporting suspicious activity to the authorities. Angels Night was a city-sanctioned volunteer operation, functioning much as a neighborhood watch organization would. The guerrilla-style surveillance in the neighborhoods enforced curfew and alerted the authorities to any suspicious activities. The mobilization of Angels Night volunteers worked, and in 2017, the city officially ended the program. Angels Night was replaced with a community celebration on October 30th, Halloween in the D. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that back when I was in middle school, maybe elementary school, it was a big thing on the news that they were purposely trying to switch the name to Angels Night everywhere, hoping that people might behave better if it switched the name from Angels Night to Devil's Night. But obviously, that didn't end up taking off. Everybody's like, yeah, Devil's Night, it's Detroit. Let's go destroy stuff and burn stuff. So they consciously tried to make an effort to switch the name, but it did not work. And they even tried to do
like a Facebook changing its name to Meta and thinking everybody's going to just forget about them stealing all your information.
Yep. They even tried to do another thing. I think it was like a year or two later where they called it All Saints Night, trying to take it a little bit step past Angel Night. But again, that one, of course, did not end up working. But it seems like it slowly dwindled off. Like there's still some things in Detroit where you end up getting, like the fires and stuff like that on Halloween Eve, but it's not nearly what it used to be. And I feel like that's mainly because of the fact that there's so much video surveillance everywhere that, people kind of just don't want to take that risk anymore. But, it still happens, of course. And are the flames extinguished? Detroit is not alone in the Devil's Night nightmare from the past. Cities like Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New Orleans all have their own version of Devil's Night, each under a different moniker, but the intention the same, causing mischief. Not all the vandalism and fires have been stopped, but each year the number of incidents dwindles. Angels Night, through the support of community, helps contribute to the declining numbers and many in the community still patrolling on October 30th. The history of Devil's Night lives on for Detroiters, marked by fear, fire, chaos, and community. And then it says, if you want to check out more information, of course, go and check out their website. But a little bit of information for you guys as far as Devil's Night goes. And even makes reference to the fact that it has definitely dwindled down, but I remember this being like a high state of fear when I was a kid. Like as soon as it was Halloween Eve, man, everybody, as soon as they got off work, they're trying to prep all their supplies for the night so they could get inside, lock the doors, not take a step outside. Like, I don't know, maybe my parents are just over paranoid, but they did not mess around with Devil's Night. Like any bump noise outside the door, they got all the lights on, they're peeking out the window. Like they did not mess with that shit.
What I think is kind of interesting about this story is I read at some point, and I can't remember what book it was in, so I can't give credit due where credit's due, but this idea that throughout history, like the ruling class has always like given the peasants, if you will, like this one time of year where they could act up and, there'd be feasts and you were allowed to drink. And like this even went into like American slavery times. But, this was a way to like kind of control the workers and the population was, if they had this one time a year where the tables were turned and the people in power were then, kind of below the workers, it would keep everybody kind of in line. So that's kind of what it sounds like to me is just something very much of that same vein. And we joked about the purge, but, same type deal. It's all could be seen as a mechanism for just controlling the public. Hey, we're going to give you this one night to freak out and do whatever you want to so you don't freak out all the other times.
What was really funny, though, is like when it first started, I feel like there was not a lot of like control over it. Like they would kind of just like stop the fires once they started. But like I said, you guys not being Detroiters, it's kind of hard to give you guys the full view of this. But like, I'm not kidding. Like half the city would be on fire. Like we have so many abandoned buildings down here and they're all like old buildings that they're all wood. Like everything would just catch onto the next house, onto the next house. Like I remember when I was a kid, there would be like an orangish dark ambiance, like coming from towards the city because there'd be so many fires on Devil's Night. Like I almost wonder at a certain point that you kind of started talking about the whole thing about the elites and the rich. Think about this, man. If you just like in the purge, they take the opportunity to get rid of things that they don't necessarily want, So if you are, for example, somebody that comes in and buys a shit ton of property, you guys don't necessarily want to deal with demolition. How hard is it to throw some money to a few local people to set a couple blocks on fire? And now you can get the land cheap as shit. And now already the buildings are half destructed. So they're that much easier to take apart now. So I'm pretty convinced for a while when they were really trying to flip over the cities after the riots and everything back in the 70s, that they were kind of trying to maybe use this as an opportunity but it just ended up getting out of hand because the way Detroit is, once somebody sets a fire, everybody's like, yeah, man, I want to set a fucking fire too. Let's do it.
Well, the funny thing about that is that would be right in the playbook we've talked about with a lot of recent events, like whether that be the Maui fires or even, the hurricane here in North Carolina last year, where it's basically these elites or corporations kind of using nefarious means and possible weather manipulation to be able to seize property and not have to pay off, people market value for their property and their homes.
I mean, like I said, it would definitely make sense that they would enact this. And it kind of makes sense in a weird way, too, that the whole Devil's Night thing seems like it instantly stopped one year for the most part. Like I said, there's a few scattered things, but it was not what it used to be. And it just stopped overnight, it seemed like one year. And around that time was the same time that all this heavy investor money was coming into the city. So it kind of makes sense, again, kind of getting into that conspiracy that as soon as some real heavy money starts coming into the city, all the fires stop. Kind of weird, right? And the only places that the fires still end up happening are the old burned out neighborhoods and stuff like that. I mean, you could definitely say it's maybe a means of opportunity, but back in the day, people were setting local businesses on fire. So I feel like if it wasn't there's a reason behind that, I mean, Detroit is crazy, so maybe that is the rule of it, but it is what it is.
Maybe it's just that simple. Do you have anything to add on this one, Ben?
Well, it also seems like that would be a really good way to commit arson and make an insurance claim as well.
Yep, yeah. Especially considering that this was around the time that the city was starting to get really, really bad. If you didn't want your business in that area anymore, burn that shit down on Devil's Night, and now you can claim an insurance claim, and you don't have to have your business in the city anymore.
Exactly.
Got to start looking into these businesses, see how many of them started moving their businesses north.
Follow the money.
Well, I guess on a little bit of a lighter note, considering that, Jennie, of course, is a surprise co-host on this one, she ended up bringing something that we're going to dive into today. So without further ado, Jennie, wherever you happen to want to start, and I do have these pictures whenever you want me to bring them up for you.
Okay. So this is going to be super lighthearted. Nothing, maybe a little paranormal to it, but we are going to talk about the Haunted Mansion in Orlando, Florida at Disney World. So some fun things about, well, I'm going to get to that. Don't show that yet, Shayn.
Okay. I'll close it up. Just let me know when.
Let me pontificate a little bit first. Okay. So Disney World's in Orlando. Disneyland is in California. So Disneyland had this Haunted Mansion. This was Walt Disney's just baby. This was his thing. So when he built it in Disneyland, even though there wasn't even a Disney World, he built two of everything. So they brought this to Disney World. And because of the popularity of it, it was literally one of the first buildings that was built there in 1971. And then everything else in Liberty Square, where it is, was built around it. All right, now we're just going to talk a little bit about the ride. So the queue. Outside the mansion's exit near the queue, there's a metal ring embedded in the pavement. And it actually was a sawed-off post, probably used for the queue at one time. But the fans, after they were not using it anymore and it got sawed down, it left like a circle in the concrete. And the fans and the lore turned to that this was the wedding ring of the Black Widow in the Haunted Mansion named Constance. So we're going on through the queue, and the cemetery is just full of fun headstones with fun puns. And each of the tombstones honors an engineer who worked on the creation of the Haunted Mansion. Okay, now you can show that picture.
Okay, bringing it up now.
All right, perfect. This is called the facade. And this is what you see. This is the building. All right. The mansion, visible from outside, is just the show building's entrance. The only thing that is in this part of this is the two stretching rooms and the entrance to it. All right, and there's a second one, too. Okay, can y'all see the facade? This teeny tiny building in the front? So the back warehouse, that is actually the ride. And so how you get to the ride, and I hope somebody else has been to Disney World a time or two. Once you go into the stretching room, In Disneyland, it's an elevator, and up until yesterday, I thought that the one in Disney World was an elevator. You might not. Well, you do. You know this now. Actually, it is stationary, and they just raise the ceiling. You enter in one door, you exit in another door. So I think that's really fun. But they hide this entire warehouse situation with the berm from the railroad and the trees. So, you have anything to add in yet?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I just want to throw this in that I find this
Sure.
always super duper interesting, that not only for this ride, but almost any ride that Disney does, they do this thing where they want to keep the kingdoms like secluded as the kingdoms, and you don't see things that you're not supposed to see. So they
We're
do
gonna
these
get
like
to some that we're gonna get to
these
something
really
good.
cool purposeful things where they'll like lay things up where you can't see the world that's next to the place that you're in, because they'll purposely like set up these walls and everything. Like it's cool. You have this like setup that you think of as Disney, but you look at an aerial view and you realize that there is like there's way more sections that you don't even realize that are there, because they purposely will like steer you away where it's almost like an optical illusion that it doesn't exist in the first place.
No, and that was a big thing. Like Walt was all about the magic and preserving the magic. So once you get inside the ride, there are just lots of fun illusions I'm going to touch on real quickly. There is a huge ballroom where it really looks like there are ghosts, and anyone can Google this and find videos on YouTube of it. But this was a thing called Pepper's Ghost, and basically it was where they had like real animatronics, but they had a huge piece of glass, so they shone light through the glass, and where you're sitting on the ride, all you see is the reflection. So very cool, cutting edge stuff back in 1971. There's an endless hall that really looks endless, and it is purely made with mirrors. Also fun thing, there's a custom scent blend used in the ride's load area, a faint mix of musk, dust, and mildew, pumped in to make it feel like an old haunted house. And they not only do that in the Haunted Mansion, they do it on Main Street. They'll pump in like the smell of sugar cookies and the smell of popcorn. And this is all to, not at the Haunted Mansion, I don't know what they would be selling there, but like in the other areas to make you hungry. Well,
So it's the ambiance.
It might make somebody hungry at the Haunted Mansion. I don't know.
It sets the ambiance. That's what they're going
That's
for,
it.
I think. Because I feel like they probably use it in other places too, not just for like selling and stuff. But I'm trying to think of like where else you might have like smells or something. Like, I think that's what it was in the It's a Small World ride. I'm pretty sure
Yes.
don't they use like smells or something when you go through like particular countries? So it smells like bread or it smells like this or whatever. So it fits like the ambiance of the countries and stuff too.
They do, and the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, they pump in a smell to that to make it smell just like, but like it smells like water. I don't even know what water would smell like, but
Isn't there a part I read that there's a part where there's like a burping pirate and they like push out like a rum smell, so it smells like a rum
I
burp.
hope so.
They need Jack Sparrow on there doing that. Actually,
that would
that's
make-
just the real Johnny Depp. That's not Jack Sparrow.
Next
Which
year,
he
you'll
has
have to
done
deep
before.
dive, Pirates of the Caribbean.
That would make me super thirsty. That'd be fabulous.
Which he has done before. I'm pretty sure Johnny Depp, I think I remember reading an article that he went on the ride for a day and would just see if anybody recognized that it was actually him, and he pretended to be Jack Sparrow on the ride for a day.
That's fabulous. I love everything that you just said. That is so good.
I just imagine him coming in from one spot where you can't see to another spot where you can't see, just doing the run. Like, was
He's
that an
so great.
animatronic or was that a real man?
No, that would be wonderful.
He's just running across like that.
See, we're going to make this scary. We're going to make this scary. All right. And so at the ride's finale, you have the hitchhiking ghost. And
I have to
Go
jump
ahead.
in. That's pretty funny, Shane, since we just talked a couple weeks ago about hitchhiking ghost legends on the show.
Everything
No.
comes full circle. We've learned that.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is where the term came from.
So it's funny. Yeah, I don't know if I told you while I was working on the episode, we were covering like a North Carolina ghost story.
Oh, is this
Lydia the
Uh-huh,
hitchhiking
yeah.
ghost.
I actually watched that episode on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, part of the research I did said that like basically every state, every major city has one of these like hitchhiking ghost type legends. There's like 4 other ones in North Carolina alone. So it's just a prominent feature of, like folklore, urban legends, whatever, this hitchhiking ghost mythology. So I'm sure, this plays right into that.
Yeah,
there's even like ancient Jinn stories about like Jinn getting on the back of like somebody's camel and like looking like a normal person, and then they started seeing like the claws wrap around them, and then when they started freaking out and turned back, the Jinn would like disappear. So I mean, even that whole motif of story even goes beyond ghosts and goes into like Jinn and like other creatures doing things like that too in different contexts.
Well, and that's kind of what they do too. Like they changed the interaction in 2011, that upgraded it, made it better, and they will swap your head and stretch your face and make you disappear and stuff like that. So that's kind of part of that, I guess.
I hope they add AI to it, because somebody will get it to a point where it starts swearing. Like, wasn't that already a thing at one of the Disney parks? Is they added like a AI Darth Vader, and somebody got it to start swearing or something?
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Add AI to the hitchhiking ghost and start getting him to swear at people. That'd be great.
No, well, this scared the shit out of me when I was little. So I mean, that's really funny.
Yeah, just imagine him swearing at you in the process of that. Having like a full conversation with you, learning your name. That's horrifying.
Yeah, that would be pretty bad. That'd be pretty bad. All right, so I'm going to go into a few urban legends. Bad things that happen in the Haunted Mansion. So the Doom buggies, as they are called. So you ride in this this car, and it's on a track that never stops. So there's an urban legend of a little boy who fell out of the ride and fell to his doom, and they didn't find him like till the next day. And now cast members claim they see him every now and then, just riding the ride, just sitting there. And so there is another story. So I think these stories are mostly the same, just they changed the character. There is the story of the man with the cane. And I think this one has a pretty good lore, like pretty good following to it. Cast members like talk to him. I think his name's George too, which is funny because there's a George ghost in Pirates of the Caribbean as well. But he fell too, and now they see him on the ride as well. And then there's one third one that I'm going to tell that's going to kind of tie into something else. So there are the grad night stories. I guess back in the day, Disney had like these grad nights for high school seniors, and they'd open the park and leave it open late. And a group of teenagers got lost in these tunnels underneath the Haunted Mansion and never were seen again. So this story.
Well, they were probably doing drugs and fucking.
That would be my guess.
How young of kids were they? Because they may have been snatched up by people that worked at the Disney park, especially in those endless tunnels. Because I've heard of employees getting lost in those endless tunnels.
Oh, we're getting there.
We're getting there. All right. Here's my spooky, maybe not so spooky, maybe super spooky story. Okay. When I was 16, almost 17, but still 16, I met a cast member. I was on family vacation, and I met a cast member, and this fucker had to be like 7 feet tall, blonde. I've told Orin this story, and he's like, "Yeah, you met a Nordic down there. You met a
Nephilim."
Yeah, exactly. So I met him, and we were there for like a week. So every day I go back and ride the ride over and over because, we were kind of like, I was kind of crushing on him and stuff. And so the last night of the trip, I'm riding at the end of the night, and he asked me to stay. And he tells my parents, he's like, "Look, I'll get her back to Fort Wilderness where you're staying." So Fort Wilderness is probably, if you walked, a 20-minute walk from the Magic Kingdom. If you rode the water taxi or whatever, probably 15 minutes. But you also have to consider getting out of the park and then getting to your transportation, and also at closing time. So my parents, God love them, said, "Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine."
It was a different time.
It was a different
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Not to date myself too much, but it was a different time. So anyway, So I guess at this point, he took me through the utilidors.
Which are the tunnels.
Yes,
under,
let me describe. Yeah,
yeah.
I need to. All right, so for anyone who doesn't know, this is that last picture, Shane. The utilidors are something that Walt Disney absolutely planned from the beginning, because in Disneyland, he saw a cowboy who was supposed to be from Frontierland in like a land that he's not supposed to. And if anyone doesn't know, there's like Fantasyland, Frontierland, Liberty Square. There's different places. So he didn't like this. So he tacked on an extra $5 million to the plans for Disney World, which in today's money would be like $47 million. So he...
Chicken shit money for Disney.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
So, especially now that they got it set up where you can't share accounts. They want to make sure they got every single dollar. And also on top of that, you can't sue them if you have an account. So they got themselves covered there now too. Because that was something that fell in like a year or two ago, that if you have a Disney Plus account, you sign something that basically says that you can't sue them. So just another fun fact.
Well, they will take your money. But this is basically the first floor of Disney. So they built these utilidors and they cover over 9 acres. And that's pretty big. And it's basically a place where the cast members can go from one land to another without being seen by the public, not ruining the magic. And down below, they have like cast member locker rooms, their costume department, this very intricate trash removal system.
Isn't there even like, or was at one point like a Subway down there for like
food?
Restaurant,
Absolutely.
like for the cast members to eat?
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure there's a frozen Walt Disney down there somewhere too.
Exactly. I think that too. There's all this stuff down there, and apparently this fella, and I don't recall his name, it was a long time ago, took me through the utilidors and back to Fort Wilderness and just left me there. And my parents show up like a half an hour later, and my mom's like, "Are you okay? Where you been?" Like, and I tell her this whole fucking elaborate story and explain everything about the utilidors to her. I don't remember this. I have zero recollection of any of this. None of it. I couldn't tell you anything about it, but apparently it happened. I mean, it's a true story.
Or according to your mom.
I mean, why would she make up something like that, you know? And one more fun fact about it. So now you can take a tour down there. It's like the Keys to the Kingdom tour. And there's absolutely no photography or video. And I was taken down there way before this was a thing. So I hate that I cannot remember this either wonderful or potentially terrible thing that happened to me. But that's my fun. Woo, maybe a little spooky. Woo, maybe a little missing time. Woo, story.
Maybe a little human trafficking.
Maybe a little human trafficking. I mean, I was 16, almost 17, but still 16.
That's the lower. If you showed up at Epstein Island.
That's the lower tunnel system. The lower tunnel system leads to Hugh Hefner's house and Epstein's mansion.
Well, this will be the last thing I'll say about it so we can move on. But, they only show you, there's a reason they're doing a tour. They're going to show you what they want you to see and take away a little bit of the mystique.
Well, it's the whole nothing to see here thing.
Nothing to see here. And I guarantee there was plenty of shit to see there that they don't show on that tour.
Hey, if they start giving tours of Area 51, you already know you're going to see like 20%. So I'm assuming it's probably no different with this. I mean, even like the catacombs, when you go to like France, like the tour area that they give is like 2% of like the whole thing. And like, what is it? Like 60% of it is like, you can't even go there. Like people haven't accessed it in like years. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's not abandoned areas or quote abandoned areas that may have been repurposed for other things that maybe even Disney may not be fully aware of or not aware of on paper, so to speak.
Well, and I know I'm always just quick to blame everything on human trafficking, but like, what a
That's the world we live in.
yeah, but like, what a
Spooky
great
Halloween.
excuse. We need this elaborate fucking tunnel system so cowboys don't show up in the spaceship land, but like you can also snatch children and take them God knows where with this tunnel system. So
I absolutely subscribe to that theory. I think there's some nefarious stuff going on down there.
There might be a Freemason temple. I feel like that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities for Walt Disney.
Well, very quickly, there is the Club 33 in Disney World, and there's like a...
And what is their like rationale for why it's called 33? I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But
okay, Walt Disney.
It's super expensive to get into, and there's like a decade long wait list to get
$33,000.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you do have to like pay admission. Like it's like a club, right?
Yeah. If you will, like a secret society, perhaps.
Yeah.
But I just know that had to be so frowned upon for a cast member or a Nordic to just taking a person down.
Well, no, you were just too damn old. If you were 16.
Well, I was 16. I was 16, almost 17.
Yeah, they like them like 14 or 15.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
they go
true.
a little younger. Maybe they're going to make you the next big Disney star, but they're like, nope, toss this one back. Just throw her over in a different land. She'll figure it out.
Past your prime.
That's true. That's true. That's absolutely true.
Well, I guess on a little bit more of a spooky Halloween note, not as lighthearted, what are some of your guys' favorite horror / scary Halloween movies to watch?
Well, my favorite Halloween movie is Halloween, the original one. But we've been, every year we pick a franchise to watch. 3 or 4 years ago we did Halloween, then we did the Friday the 13th movies, and
Chucky.
Yeah, and this year we did the Terrifier movies, as you can see from our sunshine glasses we've got on here. But so we've had a lot of fun watching those this year. But yeah, I'm always going to go back to Halloween. That's always my favorite. I'm a Michael Myers boy. So
what about you, Shane?
So I guess for me this year, I of course had to go back through and watch Hellraiser because it's been a long time since I went through some of those movies.
Never
so of course,
seen that.
Oh, they're fantastic. I mean,
Okay.
I made my girlfriend watch the newest one, which is like a revamp, but it also you can watch it not necessarily in order. So it just like inspired me to go back to the originals. But one of the cool ones that I got my kids into this year, which I actually have a shirt for today that I purposely wore for the Halloween special, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Got my kids into that one now. So that's going to become, a Halloween classic, of course. But speaking of horror movies, I think that will lead us into what Orin has for today. Because, of course, everybody watches all of these different movies and they hear this motif of based on a true story. But a lot of people don't know where that true story is or how close it might actually be to that true story, such as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Maybe we'll get into that one with the article. I guess we'll have to see, but very far off from the story. But I figured it would be a good thing to maybe we can set the record straight for some people on where the origin of some of these horror movies are.
all right. So what I have brought for us today is an article that comes via people.com, like people like the magazine. And it is titled 13 Chilling Horror Movies Based on Real Life Stories. All right, so the article goes as thus. Films such as the Amityville Horror, Nightmare on Elm Street, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there you go, became instant classics and part of the Hollywood rewatch canon. But one very significant reason why these films were such a big hit right out of the gate was because they were art that loosely imitated life. After all, what's scarier than a movie's plot that's plausible enough to happen to you or someone you know? From haunted houses and possessed dolls to true-life exorcisms, check out these horror movies based on real-life events. And y'all jump in whenever you want, whenever you've got something to contribute. So, number 1, the Amityville Horror. Though there is still major debate on whether or not the alleged paranormal events that took place at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York are true, the murders that led to the Amityville Horror being written in the first place certainly are. On November 13th, 1974, 23-year-old Ronald Joseph DeFeo Jr. got up in the middle of the night and fatally shot his entire family, parents Luis and Robert Sr., as well as siblings Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John. After admitting to having committed the murders, he used an insanity defense at trial, saying he heard voices telling him to do it, according to NBC News. After DeFeo Jr. was sent to prison, the family home was put on the market a year later, which is when George and Kathleen Lutz moved in with their 3 children. The Lutzes reported a series of paranormal activities happening in the house, which is where the story of the Amityville Horror originated. Apparently, the hauntings were so severe they had to escape the house in the middle of the night only a month after they had moved in. The Lutz's story has been the subject of much debate, especially given the fact that the next family to take over the house, James and Barbara Cromartie, lived in the house for a decade without any paranormal occurrences. But that hasn't stopped sightseers from visiting the house decades later, to the annoyance of the neighbors. So, do y'all have anything to add about this one before I move on?
I just want to throw in the fact that apparently it didn't reference once that was a Warren case, because if it was a Warren case, everybody just knows to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
We're going to get into them a little bit later. But
it already, I know, references them, because a lot of these, like, you know, based on a true story are all the Warrens, but even in their books, man, it's like 10% of the real thing, and then the rest is all just fiction. So I feel like they purposely left the Warrens' name out, because most people are just like, nope, bullshit.
Well, I'm mostly pissed that the movie left out Jody the pig, because Jody the pig was a damn fine babysitter.
All right, so we're going to move on to number 2, A Nightmare on Elm Street.
This is one of my personal favorites.
Yeah,
I don't know about you
me
guys,
too.
but as far as the franchises go, if somebody asked me, like, what is your favorite horror franchise? I think, hands down, anytime I'm probably going to pick A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I think the original Nightmare is great. I think some of the goofier ones kind of drag down the franchise a little bit. But yeah, the first one I'd put up against any slasher movie.
I mean, I was a big fan of Dream Warriors. Not the one where it started getting too ridiculous, but the third one. The one where the girl's in the insane asylum and everybody figures out that they can basically use their lucid dreaming abilities to, like, astro travel and fight back. Like, maybe some people would consider that one goofy, but I don't know. That was, if I had to pick a favorite, I think that one's my personal favorite, because it's got one of those really, really good scenes. The one where they make the kid look like the man, or like the ventriloquist dummy.
With like his
They make him-
tendons or whatever.
Yep, and they make him walk out of the door and throw himself off the building. Like, dude, that one has some of the best deaths. And it has the TV one where the girl gets grabbed and, like, smashed into the TV. Like, oh man, Dream Warriors. That's probably my personal favorite.
All right, so in this article, we're going to talk about the original one, though. So the article says, no, there is never an actual child killer who is haunting teenagers in their dreams. However, the concept of Freddy Krueger came to a nightmare on Elm Street director Wes Craven after he read an article about a boy who died in his sleep after suffering petrifying night terrors. Quote, I'd read an article in the LA Times about a family who had escaped the killing fields in Cambodia and managed to get to the U.S., he told Vulture magazine in 2014. Things were fine, and then suddenly, the young son was having very disturbing nightmares. He told his parents he was afraid that if he slept, the thing chasing him would get him, so he tried to stay awake for days at a time. When he finally fell asleep, his parents thought the crisis was over. Then they heard screams in the middle of the night. By the time they got to him, he was dead, he said. He died in the middle of a nightmare. Here was a youngster having a vision of a horror that everyone older was denying. That became the central line of A Nightmare on Elm Street. Bueller, y'all got anything on this one?
No, I like that. I didn't know that it actually stemmed from a true story. I've never heard that, and I find that incredibly interesting as someone who has terrific nightmares, or they've mostly subsided. But no, that's super cool.
I always thought it was based on a child killer. I didn't know it was based on a different story completely, honestly. And I want to throw this in there because this has been a conversation for debate. Have you guys seen the newest Nightmare on Elm Street, the like remake one?
The one from like 10 or 15 years ago?
Yeah, probably about then. Yeah, probably like mid 2000s.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys caught this, but it's something that I caught, and maybe it's something I just didn't notice as much in the originals. But in the newer one, they play off the whole idea that not only is he a child killer, but he's also a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it gets more into like the creepy, not interesting aspect. But in the old ones, they kind of lay him more as a child killer, but they don't get into the whole child molestation
I feel like
aspect
it was kind
of
of
it.
implied in the old one,
all the little girls.
Yeah,
like
you're not
jumping
just
rope and white.
yeah,
and-
you're not just gonna like kill all these little girls, probably. So yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Yeah, I think it was kind of implied in the old one, but yeah, they went penis deep in it, no pun intended, in the new one.
Like for the new one, for me, like Freddy Krueger, of course he's like a bad guy, but you always kind of were like, oh, he's like an interesting bad guy. But for me, at least, when they added in the newer one the heavy component of him molesting the children, it took away from like the coolness of Freddy to me.
Yeah.
Like it kind of just was like, like I said, it may have been in the old ones, it may have been implied, but as far as I remember, like I don't remember that being like a key factor like they played it in the new movie. And I think that was the main reason that I was not a fan of the new one, because it made Freddy like less cool to me, you know, because they played up on that too much.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, they made it basically the driving force of the movie and like why the parents reacted the way they did and all that.
Right.
Whereas all that was a lot more understated in the original. Maybe that's, you know, a sign of the times, or they just wanted to do something different and try to shock you in the new one. Who knows? But I hear they're like working on a new Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, so maybe they'll fix that in the new one.
That scares me. I hate seeing remakes of stuff. Like they keep just shitting the bed with everything, and yet they keep doing it. Like clearly enough of these remakes have failed that maybe you should try something new. You know?
All right, so we're gonna move on to number 3, and here you go, Shane. The Conjuring.
I wish I had the bullshit button on this one, so I'll just do it. Bullshit.
Okay. So this goes. Though filmmakers took some creative liberties while making The Conjuring, the crux.
Oh,
of
you
the
don't say.
The crux of the story is based on the real-life Roger and Carolyn Perrin, who moved into 1677 Round Top Road in Rhode Island in 1971 and experienced some purported paranormal activities in the house. And while paranormal investigators Ed Warren, a self-described demonologist, and his wife Lorraine Warren, a clairvoyant and medium, play a large part in the movie, they were not integral to the story of The Conjuring in real life. In fact, according to the Providence Journal, Roger Perrin kicked them out of the house when they came by. The film is based on books written by Andrea Perrin, the couple's oldest daughter, who is old enough to remember the spooky happenings.
I think everyone's just all on bullshit.
Yeah, bullshit. Anything with the Warrens, bullshit.
Well, we've got some more Warrens bullshit. Number 4.
Awesome.
Annabelle. Ed and Lorraine Warren were also involved in the story behind the movie Annabelle. They believed that an antique Raggedy Ann doll was so haunted that they had to lock her up in their occult museum in Monroe, Connecticut. The paranormal investigators claim to have been summoned by a priest named Father Cook when 2 young women, Donna and Angie, wanted to perform an exorcism to get rid of the spirit of a dead 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins who had inhabited their doll. Up until then, Donna and Angie had been informed by a medium that Annabelle's spirit, quote, was benevolent and simply wanted to be loved and cared for, per allthat'sinteresting.com. Upon their arrival, however, the Warrens explained to the young woman that they had been ill-informed and that Annabelle was, quote, in search of a human host. The couple would go on to order an exorcism and later move the doll to their occult museum where she resides now. Y'all got anything on that one?
Well, didn't Matt Rife just
yeah,
buy
I was
her
just about to
and,
say that.
her in the house, and I guess he's still up there. I mean, I don't mind him, but I think a lot of people do mind him, so still there.
We were talking about that on the show. We think it's going to turn into a YouTube funhouse because it's really unfortunate that there's a lot of these old haunted places that people buy out thinking that they're going to turn it into this like giant money-making scheme. But what they end up doing is they buy the place, they rig it up to be a haunted house, and then you can never trust anything else again. Like one of the best haunted locations in Detroit was this place called Eloise Asylum. And about 5-6 years ago, a haunted house bought Eloise Asylum. They do like a full haunted house around October. Then the rest of the time they do like tours and stuff like that. But it's rigged as a haunted house. So now it's like you can't trust it. Anything you might see the rest of the year, it's like, all right, is it something rigged up for the haunted house? same thing I think is what's going to happen with the Warrens' house. Not that I think there was any validity to 90% of the shit that the Warrens did, but now especially with Matt Rife and just being like a YouTube creator and stuff, like you're never going to be able to trust anything that you see. Like, it's only a matter of time before he has videos of like, oh, here's a live camera on Annabelle all the time, and if you watch it long enough, you can see her move a little bit, But little there'll be a little string behind her.
Or he'll be dead. I mean, we're going to go one in two ways on this one.
Well, I'm going to hope for the best because I don't wish death on anybody. But, I mean, the last person who tried to shovel with Annabelle, which we also covered on the show, didn't end up making it out. So I just wanted to throw that one out there. But, I mean, it is a Raggedy Andy doll, or Raggedy Ann doll. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's scary all on its own.
Well, he can use his chiseled jawline to fight off the demons. So he'll be fine.
There you go.
All right, so we're going to move on to number 5, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And I've never actually seen this movie. So if you guys have, maybe you can add some more to this than I can.
This was one of those ones that came out in like the 2010s era of scary movies that there was a lot of really good, solid stuff. But because there was so much shit coming out, a lot of good stuff kind of just got pushed away into like the lump sum of all the different horror movies that are coming out around that time. And I think this is one of them that's like a cult classic that came out around that time, but I know of the movie, but I haven't personally seen it myself either.
Well, and I'm not like a huge fan of exorcism, movies in general. Like me and Jennie have talked about this. I watched The Exorcist when I was like 11 years old and it scared the absolute shit out of me. And like, I refuse to watch it now. And so I think like by proxy, I just don't like any of these type of movies.
I thought you were just going to say that you just didn't like the concept and thought it was kind of lame and stupid. But
No, it's way less badass than that. I'm just terrified.
But I will say, though, that they've been overkilling it so much lately on exorcism movies that it's like, just stop for a little bit and then come back around to it. Like the zombie thing, They got to a point where they just beat people over the head so hard with the zombie concept that nobody wanted to see it anymore. Like, you got to back off for a little bit. And I think that's what's happening with exorcism movies, because how many movies have come out recently with even like the priest perspective of doing exorcisms and stuff? Like, I can name like 3 of them offhand, and I think 2 of them had Russell Crowe's main character in both.
2 different exorcism movies.
That's what I'm talking about in the past year. Playing a priest in both of them, so you mix up which movie's which.
Yeah, and they're vastly different movies. But all right, so we're going to jump into this one. The chilling events in The Exorcism of Emily Rose are nearly as frightening as the real-life events the film is loosely based on. Emily Rose is based on a 19-year-old named Anneliese Michel, who died after almost 70 exorcism sessions in Bavaria, West Germany.
That sounds like abuse. And also they got the name wrong.
Michelle, who grew up in a hyper-religious family, had been diagnosed with schizophrenia and epilepsy as a teenager. However, things took a dark turn when her convulsions turned into hallucinations and she came to believe she was possessed. Michelle then insisted on being exorcised, and her parents sought the help of Father Arnold Renz and Father Ernst Alt, who performed a host of exorcisms beginning in September of 1975. According to Collider, quote, Anneliese was often in need of restraining, either by holding her down or chaining her to a chair during the hour-long rituals. I think that's an odd use of the word ritual there. The young teen died on July 1st, 1976, and her parents, Anna and Joseph Michel, along with the clergyman, were charged with neglect, homicide, as she had stopped taking her medication and was found to be malnourished and dehydrated. The Exorcism of Emily Rose follows the complicated court case of the 4 adults, in which judges had to debate the validity of their faith versus the facts of the case. All parties were found guilty, quote, but were given lenience, sentenced only to time served and 3 months probation. So you can kill your kid via exorcism and just get off because you had faith in it. So that's the moral
Depends
of the
on
story
what country
there.
you're in. Because I don't think you'll get away with it in the U.S. because there's been a lot of like demon defense in the U.S. and it hasn't made it very far. But if you're in South America, yeah, 100%. Yeah,
I think
it'll
this was
definitely
Germany, it said. So they're doing some crazy things over there too, though.
Well, I mean, look at all the weird stuff Germans are into.
Well, you should have chimed in earlier, then.
Oh, well, I was going to let you tell the story first. No.
Well, shoot.
I have seen the movie. My basic takeaway was The Exorcist scared the shit out of me, so this did not faze me. That's it.
Well, the scariest part about The Exorcist is they use real demons. So, I mean, by watching it, are you possibly invoking something? I mean, some people believe that it is one of the movies that's on the top of the cursed list movies. So,
Well, funny enough, that's the next one we're going to talk about.
That's good.
And there's a
perfect.
batshit crazy detail in this that I just could not believe. So, number 6, The Exorcist. Though the case didn't end as tragically as Annalise Michelle's, the events behind The Exorcist are still fascinating. 13-year-old Ronald Doe was grief-stricken over the passing of his Aunt Harriet, a spiritualist, quote, who taught him many things, including how to use a Ouija board. Following Harriet's death, the boy began experiencing strange happenings, hearing scratching on the walls, seeing water mysteriously dripping from the pipes, and most scary of all, feeling his bed moving. His parents sought the help of the Catholic Church, and Father E. Albert Hughes performed the first exorcism on Doe in February of 1949. A few days after the ritual, scratches spelling out Luis appeared on Doe's body, and his mother took that to mean that they needed to leave Maryland to get more help. The family traveled to St. Louis, where they were connected to Father Walter H. Halloran and Reverend William Bowden from St. Louis University, who agreed to exorcise young Roland. They worked on the boy until April of that year, when they finally revealed the devil possessing him had gone. Decades later, it was revealed the young boy grew up to have a completely normal adulthood. According to Vanity Fair, Ronald Doe was actually Ronald Edwin Hunkeler, a NASA engineer who aided in the 1969 moon landing. His identity was only revealed after he died in 2020.
So we have a connection here that, somebody from NASA was probably messing with something that they probably shouldn't if you dive into all the Jack Parsons stuff.
How many
and
times,
somebody got possessed.
Yes, do we talk about the connections between the occult and science? And, you'd think these two things are so removed, but if you get so scientifically advanced, you're always going to circle back around to the occult and magic and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me of the whole thing that everybody says, that conspiracy eventually leads to faith. And again, science. You start diving in all these people that just want to try to scrutinize anything that's spiritual whatsoever. And then they start going full back around into this loop where they start getting into, theoretical science. And then next thing you know, they're doing sigils and they're doing all this other weird stuff. Because again, it's like anytime you get, there's like levels of it, but all of the scientists that are at like the highest levels that are creating all of this stuff that doesn't even seem logical how they could ever even come up with it are all dabbling in the occult. Yeah. So then the question comes back to the full circle idea of, is it even their idea in the first place? Or are they clearly invoking something that's giving them these ideas? So then it would fit the idea of, where are they even thinking of this stuff in the first place? And then a lot of these inventors will even say stuff like, oh, it didn't feel like my idea. It just kind of popped into my head. Like, put two and two together, man. Stuff starts getting real weird.
Well, I recently watched a documentary about this movie, and Linda Blair, the woman who played the little girl, she's like in her, I guess, 60s now. She will talk about some things, and some real fucked up shit happened on that set, and there are some things she will not even talk about at all. So, I mean, I think
she said that movie scarred her for life. Like, if I'm not mistaken, that bed scene where she's flipping around, that was like one of the last scenes they filmed, and she broke her spine while they were doing that.
Yeah, that's absolutely what she said happened.
And, we talk about, like, this is the movie that, like, Pazuzu is the demon in. So, like, we talk about, like, giving names power and, like, what sort of, secret, not so secret rituals, conjurings were they trying to do by making this movie? And just the fact that the little boy who this is based off of, who was allegedly possessed, ended up working on the moon landing is just fucking asinine to me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And especially if you dive into like Pazuzu, again, he's actually a real demon. And then you look into like the images of him that they actually use in the movie for the statues and stuff. And he's like this wing demon. So it gets into this whole idea about like flight. And then again, this guy continues to go on to work for NASA. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe there's some connections. Maybe there's not. But, I at least like to point stuff out in the process of it.
Yeah, well, I think this is the funnest one to talk about on this list. But we're going to move on to number 7, which is Poltergeist. I know one of your favorites.
I'm going to look this up just for the sake of it. I wonder what Pazuzu's supposed to be the demon of. Just for
I'm
shits
gonna
and
tell
giggles.
you, Labubu's.
Labubu.
I'm just kidding.
All right, well, I'm going to read while you look that up, Shane.
He said he was a fearsome king of the wind demon, bringing droughts and famine, but also a protective spirit against other more malevolent demons, particularly the demoness Lumashtu, who threatened pregnant women and children. In modern pop culture, Pazuzu is widely recognized as the possessing demon in the film The Exorcist. But yes, so you already have the thing of the king of the winds demon. So, I mean, does that go into flight? I mean, definitely possible.
That's pretty crazy.
For anybody that, may not know what he looks like, just because I already have it up, I might as well bring up a quick image. So there you go. There's a little image of Pazuzu for you guys. Now, anyways, back to getting into some horror movie goodness.
All right, so we're going to talk about Poltergeist now. Steven Spielberg can conjure a gripping plot out of thin air. However, for 1982's The Poltergeist, the screenwriter had plenty of material to work with. The film is based on the real-life happenings of the Herman House, which took place in the 50s in Seaford, Long Island. One morning in February of 1958, James Herman received a phone call from his freaked-out wife, Lucille, telling him that strange things were happening in their home. Their teenagers, who had reportedly heard inexplicable popping noises around the house, later found caps of, quote, shampoo, bleach, and a vial of holy water, all removed from their corresponding bottles. The family dismissed the spooky incident, and James even believed that there might have been a weird chemical reaction that caused the popping. The following weeks, however, the bizarre experiences escalated, and so did their outreach, including to the police, who were stumped too. The devout Catholics then turned to a priest, but after he prayed over the house, things got, quote, more violent, with figures smashing, and a bookcase falling over randomly. The case of the Seaford Poltergeist went national, and Life magazine published an article about it. After documenting 70 different incidents between February 3rd and March 10th of 1958, the Hermans vacated the suburban home. Anybody got anything on this one?
I got a fun fact.
Go ahead.
So in the last end scene of Poltergeist, where they have the water with all the bodies and everything in it, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead and this was your fun fact, but those are real bodies. They actually did use real bodies for that.
Yeah.
And they didn't tell the actors, so they didn't know until they were already in a pool full of dead bodies. So, little fun fact. True fear. I think that was what they were saying that they were trying to go for. They didn't want to tell the actors because they wanted their true scared expressions, but a little bit too much for me. I'd be pretty pissed if I got thrown into a pool full of dead bodies, because that's just asking for some type of illness.
Well, I love this movie, just because I love it. But I'm sure y'all heard about the curse of Poltergeist.
Yeah, this is like one of the most cursed movie productions too, right?
Yes, because the oldest daughter, her name's like Dominique. Her real name's Dominique something. I don't remember what her name was in the movie. She was violently murdered by her boyfriend, strangled to death. They say in the scene where it looks like she has hickeys on her neck, that those were actual like bruises from prior domestic violence. The little girl, Heather Rourke, I think was her name, she died also of some mysterious something or another. There was it was a priest. The priest in the movie died, and then a Native American died in it. Like, there were all kinds of people who died. As a movie, I love it. As people all dying, I think that's just terrible.
Well, I mean, the random illnesses, maybe that could have been caused from being around a bunch of, carcasses that they weren't aware were actually real carcasses. And, I mean, maybe that's part of the curse. If they were actually taking these bodies and they were doing whatever with them, I mean, you talk about the whole, like, cursed land idea. I mean, taking bodies and literally trying to film a movie with them, I feel like you're asking for something to curse you, I feel like all of their issues all come to them doing that scene in that particular way.
All right, so we're going to move on to number 8, which is The Right. And this is another movie that I've never seen. Either of you seen this one?
I haven't seen this one.
I have seen this one, but it's, again, one of those ones, like, there's just too many of them. Like, I can't think of which one exactly this is, because there's just so many priest exorcism movies.
This is a short little snippet, so we'll just breeze through this one. The story of The Right is loosely based on a book titled The Right, The Making of a Modern Exorcist by Matt Bellagio. Though, of course, certain aspects of the film are exaggerated for dramatic effect, the true story goes like this. Father Gary Thomas had been selected to train as an exorcist when he met journalist Matt Bellagio in an exorcism class. From there, Bellagio followed the priest as he traveled to Rome performing his new duty. Currently, the real-life Reverend Thomas serves as director of the some Catholic word I can't pronounce year program at St. Patrick's Seminary and University in Menlo Park, California. So not much to unpack there, but the next one on the list is a heavy hitter if y'all just want to move on to that one.
I'm good with that.
You good
Actually,
with that,
a little
Shane?
fun fact. It's not really too much to really go with this one, but now that I'm remembering the story, this priest, the actual guy that this movie's based on, he makes his rounds on podcasts. So maybe that's one that might be kind of interesting to have on the show one day. Because, yeah, now that I've connected two and two, this guy does pop up on podcasts. I think he's been on the confessionals before, if I'm being honest with you.
Really? That's pretty crazy. All right, so we're going to move on to number 9, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This one's my most favorite, based on a true story fuck up.
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit. All right. So much of what happens in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is disturbing. In particular, the character of Leatherface, the menacing basement-dwelling killer who eats people and wears their faces after killing them. And while Leatherface himself didn't exist, his traits were based on serial killer Ed Gein, who was, quote, known for exhuming corpses from graveyards and making mementos with their bones and skin.
Yummy, yummy.
What
The good news is Hoppy's too small. He wouldn't be able to make nothing out of him besides maybe a coin purse.
Yummy, yummy cannibalism, dude.
So the goblin has now entered the chat. But does
At
anyone
some
have
point, the
anything
fourth
to add
co-host
on
has
this
to make
one?
some type of appearance. So I guess to already throw this one in there, the name is completely wrong with the based on a true story. Didn't happen in Texas. Was it Iowa that it actually happened in for the Ed Gein story?
We just watched part of the
We
show.
started that, but we haven't finished
Yeah, it was
yet.
some Midwestern place like that, like Iowa, Indiana, something like that.
So the state's already wrong. There was no chainsaw involved whatsoever. The whole story on why a chainsaw became involved was because the director at one point went to a hardware store and there was a chainsaw that didn't have a chain on it, and he sparked it up, and he said that everybody started looking around like they were horrified, and he realized that that sound scares the shit out of people, so that's why he used it for the movie. So also, Ed Gein did not use a chainsaw. And then Massacre. Ed Gein was somebody who would go around and basically steal dead bodies out of graveyards and stuff. Like, I think he only actually murdered like 1 or 2 people.
I think it was
and
2.
that was around the time that he actually got caught. So Massacre, also not true. So this is one of those ones that's really funny that I remember as a kid growing up. You'd always see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre based on a true story, and you're like, damn, that's horrifying. Then a second you realize that the only component that's based on a true story is him making stuff out of people's skin. It becomes a lot less horrifying. And once you add in the fact that he didn't even kill the people to make stuff out of their skin, it loses all potency of being scary whatsoever.
No, we
But that's
actually
just me.
watched Texas Chainsaw this year, and I think it holds up
I thought it was
surprisingly
great.
well for like a,
Old movie.
50, 60-year-old low-budget movie. Like, it's pretty decent, I thought.
Oh, yeah, it's fantastic as a movie, but my only thing that I would have recommended for them filming it, or not even filming it, but in general putting the movie out, was to take away that little component that says based on a true story, because just because you took one little detail doesn't mean you have to say the whole movie is, because at that point, why don't we have based on a true story for A Nightmare on Elm Street or other movies like that?
Hey,
It's
but,
just, it's not needed.
Back in
Should've
the
just left it out.
70s or whatever, people weren't fact-checking things like they are now. So.
You know how long this probably went that people thought Ed Gein was literally like this guy until probably
Dude,
the internet and people were able to do research.
I kind of did too until here recently, and yet we watched a couple episodes of the Ed Gein show, and then I read like the entire Wikipedia page just thinking he was like this notorious serial killer because he always gets lumped in with Dahmer and shit. And I was like you said, this guy killed only, quote unquote, 2 people. So, I mean, yeah. If you don't like dive into the case, you would think he killed, like you said, went on a massacre, and he really didn't. He was just really weird and fucked up. So
I mean, he was obviously they weren't really like categorizing things as good back in the 70s, but obviously this guy was on the slower side. And what ended up kicking it off was he was one of those guys that had an obsession with his mother, and once his mother passed away, he was just basically in this house by himself, and that's when he started doing this weird stuff. He was just a slow guy with a mother obsession. And when his mom passed away, he just kind of went off the deep end because he didn't have anybody correcting him. So even off of that, it's like the story isn't scary. It's more like sad than anything that they just kind of left this guy that clearly needed his mom to live just alone in this house. Like, of course, something bad is inevitably going to happen. It's either going to happen to him or somebody else. And unfortunately, it happened to two people that really, if the city would have kept an eye on this guy, they would have known that he probably was not best to have been left by himself.
And that's another just kind of sign of the times thing. I mean, it was a different world back then as far as like mental health and mental disabilities and things like that. So,
I mean, even doing a police checkup, man, I feel like they would have smelt it from outside. There's no way this guy could have gotten away with this stuff for months and not had some type of smell coming out of that house.
You would certainly think so. All right, so we're going to move on to number 10, which is The Strangers. Okay, so this Brian Bertino thriller is an amalgamation of 3 separate real-life events. First, and perhaps most obvious, the fictional thriller draws inspiration from the Manson family's home invasion and murder of Sharon Tate and her friends Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski, as well as Stephen Parent, who was visiting the home's caretaker.
And I think one of them was pregnant too, so you can also add a baby in there too.
Yeah,
I don't
Sharon
know if that
Tate
threw that
was
into
the
the
one who was
article.
pregnant. Yep. The Strangers also incorporates parts of the Keddy, I believe is how it's pronounced, Keddie, Cabin Murders, reports Screen Rant. And we've talked about different Screen Rant articles on the show before, in which 4 people were killed in the small resort town in California. That case went cold as the murderers were never caught. Lastly, Bertino also drew inspiration from his own childhood for the movie. The famed director once got spooked by a group of strangers who knocked on his door when he was home alone one day and asked for someone who didn't reside there. Though he later learned the perpetrators were robbing houses whose occupants weren't present, the incident left an unforgettable mark on the future director, and he used the incident as part of his film.
I was really hoping that would turn into a Black Eyed Kid story. I was really crossing my fingers and hoping for the best there.
That one's
The Strangers was inspired by the Black Eyed Kids.
All right, so the next one is number 11, Winchester, and this is a movie I had never even heard of before I saw this article.
It's worth watching once. I wouldn't say it's like anything like great, but if you like paranormal movies, it's worth watching at least once, I'd say.
Have you heard of this one, Ben?
I've never heard of this, no.
All right, so
it kind of takes its own liberties on a lot, but the story for the most part's pretty good. Like I said, it's worth watching at least once.
All right, in 2018, Helen Mirren portrayed the troubled Sarah Winchester, a real-life heir to a gun-making empire who helms one of the most bizarre home renovations in history. As the story goes, Sarah was married to rifle manufacturer William Wirt Winchester. The couple welcomed a daughter who died due to a childhood illness. William followed some years later due to tuberculosis. Following the loss of her husband, Sarah moved from New Haven, Connecticut to San Jose, California, where she bought an 8-bedroom farmhouse and began her infamous renovations. From 1844 till her death in 1922, Sarah would continue making additions to the property, which now stands at 24,000 square feet, with 160 rooms, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 47 stairways, and a fireplace, and more. Now known as the Winchester Mystery House, rumors of paranormal activity have swirled around the property. So much so that the Winchester management team had, quote, a parapsychological and paranormal investigator named Christopher Chacon conduct a full-scale scientific assessment back in the 90s. Bueller?
So, just to throw in some fun facts, I guess, about the Winchester house. So the main component to the story is basically they state that the reason that she did this, and honestly, this was kind of a superstition with the whole family, Winchester is Winchester rifles.
Yeah.
So the family had a whole thing about anybody that's died by their rifles, they felt like they haunted their family. So it became part of this whole motif that the reason why they built the weird aspects of this mansion was to be able to house these spirits. But this is where like they kind of
haunted mansion.
That's fabulous.
This is kind of where the miscommunication kind of came in. So it wasn't until I think relatively recently that somebody really started like diving into some of the articles and stuff that she wrote while she was actually starting to do all this renovations and everything to the house. But of course they're kind of pushing it off to the side because they're still making money off of this house. But basically the reason that she said that she did all this stuff to the house was that she was really, really interested in interior design. And she had such expendable income because, again, the Winchester rifles is a ridiculous fortune, that she would basically continuously try out these new architecture ideas, these new things. And she would kind of just play it off because she was a woman. And at the time, people weren't really looking at women to be able to do these types of things. So she was essentially using the mansion as trial and error to try out new architectural ideas. But with the mixture of that, her not really talking to many people, kind of keeping to herself, being somewhat of a recluse, and then the family already having the stories going around that they were afraid of everybody that's been killed by a Winchester rifle haunting them. This house took on this whole motif of being this haunted house and all this stuff, which of course I still put I put thought into the paranormal. Like, I definitely think that it's possible that if people were killed by Winchester rifles, maybe they'll haunt the mansion. But, I think the root of the story is basically that she just wanted to do something interesting and people just kind of blended all this folklore together. And now you have this idea of what the Winchester house is. And if you kind of break it apart and kind of shift through the mess a little bit, you realize that unfortunately it's one of those things that, as cool as it is, I don't really think there's too much to it, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was kind of my takeaway from just reading this snippet. I don't think there's a whole lot to this one paranormal just on the surface, but this next one I think is super interesting.
But the movie, I will say, like I said, worth watching once if you're into paranormal stuff. It doesn't do jump scares that kind of get you into like the motif of it. But the cool part is they play into the fact that she was building all these rooms for the different spirits. So every room in the movie is like a little bit different for each spirit. And she also tries to make them where the spirits will get confused and not know how to find her. But it's pretty cool. They play into that idea that almost every room has like a different spirit in it. So like I said, worth watching once if you're into paranormal stuff that isn't jump scares, but kind of gets you into the ambiance of the movie.
We might have to check that one out then.
Yeah.
All right, so number 12 is The Birds.
Ooh, classic.
Yep. Part of what made Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds so fascinating was how unbelievable the story was. Even more intriguing is the fact that the film is partially based on true events. While it's widely known the movie was based on Daphne du Maurier's short story of the same name, a freak incident taking place in California 2 years prior to the film's premiere also serves as inspiration. Back in 1961, residents of Capitola woke up to find that hordes of black seabirds were slamming into cars, windows, and people's homes and dying. The freak incident naturally made the news. Decades later, scientists would confirm that the seabirds had been affected by a domoic, I guess it would be pronounced, DOMOIC acid, which is, quote, a naturally occurring poison made by a marine phytoplankton called Pseudonychia, per the History Channel. The poison can cause disorientation, seizures, and death. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun! Sorry, I had to at least get one in per show, right?
I had no idea that was based on something true. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting one.
Yeah, I had no idea either, to be honest with you. I thought it was just one of those, like the classic movies. You didn't need to have like a super complex idea, but you could make a good movie out of it because everything was original back then. I thought it was just one of those, somebody had like an experience with like a bird swooping on them and they turned it into a movie. I didn't think that there was really much to it besides just at the time, not having to put as much complexity into a horror story to write something original,
That's something we've been talking about a lot this Halloween season as we've been watching a bunch of horror movies. We've watched more current and newer movies this year than we have in years past. And this idea that like now a horror movie can't just be a horror movie. Like it's got to be something else and a horror movie. Like you've got to have this
social commentary.
This social commentary, or you've got to like have a manifestation on grief and the effects of grief on people. And no, grief is the real monster here. Like we've lost just being able to have like a simple horror movie. And I think that's why the Terrifier movies are so popular. Yeah. They're just fucking horror movies. Like you're not trying to beat people over the head with some larger idea or agenda.
No, I can definitely agree with that. One thing that I've noticed a lot with like older film versus newer film, and I guess this can kind of play into what you guys are saying a bit, is that with the older stuff, they didn't rely as much on, computer effects and all that type of stuff. So they had to take more time to write like a good story.
Yeah.
Not something that, has all these like double messages or like all this stuff. Just like a good solid, like, here's a story, like with some good twists, some good turns. like the story writing was a lot different. Like I wish that the newer movies had the ability to kind of do that, because now instead of coming up with good original stories, they just remake old stuff and then just change a couple components thinking that, you know, you're not going to guess what happens next. Like I miss the days when it wasn't just like, all right, we're going to make a horror movie. Our set focus is as much gore as possible. I miss the days when it was like, all right, here's a good story, and then let's fill in the rest afterwards. Like, because I feel like that's what all these good original, you know, horror movie franchise started on, was a good, solid story, and then they built up from there. And even the effects of practical effects versus CGI. I don't know about you guys, but maybe it's just because we're part of that generation, but the practical effects may look a little goofier, but in your brain, to me, like I connect them as being more realistic.
Oh yeah.
So like
brain can
older
always
stuff
pick
looks
up,
goofier, but it feels more real.
Yeah, because your brain can always discern something that's not fucking real. Like I talk about that all the time when we watch movies. Like now that you're not allowed to have like animals in movies, like, oh my God, that's the fakest looking lion I've ever seen. And it just like takes you out of the entire movie. So yeah, it doesn't matter how good visual effects get, it's never going to be as convincing as a practical effect that is a real thing that exists in the fucking real world.
Which I'm glad that it seems like there's starting to be a revival of people going back to that. First one being like a newer notable film that actually took the opportunity to do this, Alien Romulus. I guess you can still kind of consider that horror. It's like a horror sci-fi.
It's horror adjacent, yeah.
Yeah, like Disney wanted to do all CGI, all this stuff. And the director of that was basically like, no, I'm doing practical effects. I'm doing it how the originals kind of wanted to do it. And he basically put that hard line in the sand and basically said, like, if you are going to make me use the CGI and stuff, like, I'm not going to do it. So he tried to do everything he could to just use practical effects. And what happened with that movie, dude? It had an awesome turnout. Everybody said it's one of the best looking alien movies, all of that shit. So with the modern day technology that we have, instead of focusing on trying to do stuff the easier way where we green screen it, we have better effects to make practical effects look better now. So I'm glad that, again, there's this revival that we're pushing back towards that, because people are realizing that it doesn't matter how good the CGI gets. Nothing compares to having some type of practical effect in front of you. Even if it's just like, you know, you're pulling a body apart in a horror movie and the blood splattering at you. Like, it's never going to look as good if you're doing it with a computer than if you have something that blows up in the person's face and you really get that real effect of like splash and everything. Like, oh man, practical effects, man. Like 80s, that was like the epitome of horror in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the Jurassic Park movie that came out 3 months ago still doesn't look as good as the one that came out
that's
30 years ago, you know? So.
And if you remember, dude, when they were transporting those dinosaurs, do you remember people like freaking out because they were seeing those things on the freeway and they thought they were like real dinosaurs and stuff? I mean, talk about a product of the time. Only back in the 90s could you take practical effect dinosaurs on the freeway and people would actually think that they may potentially be a real dinosaur.
All right.
But nowadays, man, you just have a UFO for a movie and you drive that down the highway and everybody's going to freak out and it's going to be all over the internet. So
nothing to see
just
here.
transfer the means.
All right. So we've gone a little long, so I'm going to kind of breeze through this last one. It's number 13.
And I did have some fun facts, but I put it down to one. So to wrap everything up, at least I got one good fun fact I want to close everything on.
So this is number 13, which is Scream. After catching wind of the horrific Gainesville murders, which took place back in August of 1990, screenwriter Kevin Williamson, who I believe is from North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, couldn't shake the idea that there was a knife-wielding serial killer after him. So he transformed his angst into a blockbuster screenplay. Much like the events in the movie, Danny Rolling, dubbed the Gainesville Ripper, targeted college students in a killing spree that became a nationwide sensation.
Kind of weird timing. I just listened to a podcast about that the other day, and they're breaking down that whole story. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I feel like that's one of the ones that's like actually relatively like close to what they based it on. Because basically this kid just had this tumultuous childhood, and he got to a point where he was living out in the woods in a tent, and he was living by a college campus, started watching them, and then he just started going in and killing people. And just, it was pretty much like the motif of Scream. I feel like that one was relatively close. So,
Well, guys, I apologize for going long on this one. I thought that there was some fun stuff to unpack there and some fun conversations to have. But yeah, that's all I've got for this horror movie real life events thing. If y'all don't have anything else to add to this section of the show.
No, I think that was good.
I have one fun fact before we completely start closing stuff up. So, again, I originally had a list, but this is a really, really good one that I feel like kind of fits into the conversation, and I feel like you guys might be interested in, and it's perfect for Halloween. So, 41% of Americans believe that ghosts exist. YouGov poll conducted in 2021 found that 41% of Americans believe that ghosts exist, and 20% of Americans say that they've have had an encounter with one. About as many as 43% believe that demons really exist, and 31% believe that other supernatural beings exist. Additionally, 9% believe that werewolves exist, and 8% believe that vampires exist. But I wanted to point out the fact that 41% believe that ghosts exist, and 43% believe that demons exist. So there are more people that believe that demons exist than ghosts exist. And I thought that would be flip-flopped, if I'm being honest with you.
Well, I think you have to factor in Christians into that, and like
that's true.
For all of the, we're a more secular society than we've ever been. There's still a lot of religious people out there, even if they're not super duper practicing. So I think that kind of makes sense in a nutshell. Like if you ask someone who's even nominally a Christian, like, hey, do you believe in ghosts? They might be, oh no, that's weird occult shit. But do you believe in oh hell yeah, no pun intended. So I don't know. I think that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah.
The funny part is, I think we fall into the awkward 9% and the 8% that believe that werewolves and vampires exist.
We just don't think they're werewolves and vampires.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of context. Yeah, like we were saying, like werewolf. Anybody has an experience with a dog man with no context is going to go, yeah, I saw a fucking werewolf.
That's a fucking werewolf.
I put some validity into that. And as we talked about on our recent episode with vampires, the more you dive into the ancient lore and you break away from, the Bram Stoker Dracula lore, the more validity there weirdly is to it. And especially once you start diving into just the aspect of like how apex predators work, that eventually there's going to be something that tops. Like, I don't think they gave much context with this, but, we're part of that 9 and 8%. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but hey, we're there.
Hey, like I said on our episode a couple weeks ago, vampires is Nephilims. So
yeah, you ain't wrong there, but
all right, guys. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight. Our next Bizarre Inquiries live show is going to be next week, which I believe is November 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Roughly 7:15. What's that, Shane?
I said yes. I believe that is correct.
Okay. So whatever.
I don't have the calendar for next week up
whatever
yet,
the
so
first
I'm gonna guess
Thursday in November is. You guys be sure to join us roughly 7:15 Eastern time on the Bizarre Reality Media YouTube channel. You can submit questions, inquiries, anything you want us to talk about, and join us in the chat.
And if you guys might be interested in contacting us for any reason whatsoever, possibly even sending us some clips for that show, you guys can get a hold of us through email. Depending on which show you're trying to contact us through, you can either get a hold of us through bizarreencounters@outlook.com, or you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. Or, of course, you guys can get a hold of us through social media. Doesn't matter which show. Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are the ones that we're the most active on. And you guys can also get a hold of us through a submission form, which is available up at the top of the link tree. And the last way you guys can get a hold of us is by calling or texting the Bizarre Reality Hotline. You guys can call or text that 24/7, and that number is 313-364-1551.
And if you guys want to support the show, we've got a few different ways you can do that. Shane, why don't you tell them how?
First and foremost, you guys can go and check out our awesome Patreon with 2 tiers available, ad-free/early access and full access. And if you guys want to see what it's all about, there are 7-day free trials available for both tiers.
Or you can check out the merch store with t-shirts starting at the spooky low and oddly specific price of just $15.68 plus shipping. Wow.
That witch is real excited about those prices. But I know times can be tough out there, but if you guys would like to support the show in some other ways, one awesome way that you can do it is
you can like, share, and subscribe and do all the internet things. Y'all know how the internet works. Just do it.
Or you guys can also leave a review or rating for the show on any podcatcher or video content website, whatever it happened to be that you happen to use.
And you can share the show with your friends or family or even your enemies if you're interested in doing that.
And every single thing that we mentioned is all available on the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And as usual, I have been the one that they refer to as Shayn Squatch.
Oh, and I'm just Jennie.
Simply Jennie. I think we used to call you Paranormal Jennie, if I'm not mistaken.
Paranormal Jennie. Jennie from the block. Jennie.
And we've got Hoppy the Goblin, who
Hoppy the Goblin.
all of our Instagram followers will know. And I'm the big bad Boo Daddy, Orin Felix.
And from all of us around here, we of course have to wish you guys a
Happy Halloween, Scaredy Pants.
happy Halloween, Scaredy Pants. So for all you guys that are going out with the kids tonight, don't steal too much of their candy. And of course, always, like we always say on every single show, don't forget to always stay bizarre. Bizarre.
Vampires is Nephilims.
Trick or treat! Hi, I'm the Wicked Wiener.
Fuck you, kid, you're a dick.